Avatar: The Last Airbender needs to continue as a franchise. We deserve a new Avatar series. I think I know exactly how it should be done. We need a massive, intricate, story-focused Avatar video game. Now hear me out. I love animation, and ideally, that's the direction in which the series would continue. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Quality animation is expensive and takes a lot of time, and unless the merchandising sales are huge, big companies like Nickelodeon or Viacom won't invest in them. If a new Avatar series were animated, it would draw millions of viewers, but most of them would watch it on third-party websites or use ad blockers of some sort. To guarantee continuous, quality Avatar content for us fans and a steady stream of income for Nick, Avatar needs to make its way over to the realm of console gaming. But don't worry, I know exactly how it would all work. First things first, where in the timeline should this game go? The obvious answer is right after Korra. Continue the lineage with a new Avatar born in the Earth Kingdom. But there's a little issue with that makes me want to place the game somewhere else in the timeline. See, one of the biggest changes to the Avatar world between The Last Airbender and Korra was the advancement of technology. We saw rudimentary steam-powered machinery used in trains, airships, jet skis, and drills in the original series. In Legend of Korra, there were cars, mech suits, and even an equivalent to nuclear power with the Spirit Vine technology powering giant monster robots. If we were to jump another 70 years or so into the future again, the Avatar world would be completely different. I think the fantasy vibe and spiritual aspect of the series is at its strongest in a world that is more natural than man-made. And besides, if the technology of the world was more advanced than our own, the gameplay would need to focus on that at least a little bit. When in reality, the gameplay should focus on one thing primarily: bending. But before I get into the bending mechanics, where would I put the game in the timeline? I would put it at some indiscriminate point between Avatar 1 and Avatar Aang. The Avatar world is an ancient one, with 10,000 years of unknown history between the birth of the first Avatar and the beginning of the first series. It's a world ripe with possibilities, and so much of it has gone unexplored until now. What did the foundation of Ba Sing Se look like? When did the air nomads establish their 4 separate temples, and was it a coordinated effort? Were there ever water tribe settlements outside of the poles? The swamp benders had to get to the Earth Kingdom somehow. Because there are so many open-ended questions left about the Avatar world, there is an astounding freedom available to the storytelling directions you could take. There is so much potential for interesting tales in this period. It's the perfect place to tell Avatar stories. And yes, I said stories, multiple. If we're crafting this new Avatar story and it's set with a video game as the medium, I think we should see one entire Avatar cycle. The individual stories could be sequel games, but they would need to be direct sequels. Part of what made The Legend of Korra enjoyable was seeing the influences Aang and his friends had over the future of their world. Seeing that same sort of influence unfold, but from characters you got to play as in previous installments, would be awesome. And it would grant us a sense of completion that the TV show hasn't given us so far. Balance, the cycle of the Avatar. We need to see 4 of them in a row. And I think it makes the most sense to start with an Earth Avatar. We've gotten air and we've gotten water, and we've seen the complete lives of 2 fire avatars, Wan and Roku. It's time we see the story of an Avatar born and raised in the Earth Kingdom, and the way that affects their development. But other than birthplace, there is so much more to the potential storytelling of the Avatar world that hasn't been tried yet. What if the Avatar was born as the crown prince of his own nation? What if the Avatar's identity didn't go discovered until she was an adult? What if we saw an Avatar reject his humanity and hide away in the spirit world? Or an Avatar that looked for a way to transfer the Avatar spirit to another person? There are so many ways to play out this narrative, so limiting the project to one Avatar and one game is simply unwise. And what I think would be the most fascinating about showing an Avatar cycle is that their lives bleed into each other. What would be cooler than an overarching villain of some sort who's established during the life of the Earth Avatar, only to return hundreds of years later and face down with a new Water Avatar? And beyond that, think of the thematic potential. The original Avatar focused on multiple Eastern philosophical concepts like reincarnation, meditation, chakras, spiritual nonviolence. Korra covered the concepts of change and balance, and even touched on absorbing cosmic energy and astral projection. But there's so much more to be discussed across all Eastern religions and philosophies, so these games would not need to be shallow commercial products. They could be real, deep, thought-provoking pieces of art. I imagine the type of story they weave could be something like The Last of Us. The narrative is the focus, and by the end of the emotional roller coaster, you find yourself just wanting more of this world. But enough about the story. Let's get back to gameplay. Bending should be the primary focus, and I believe that technology has finally advanced to the point where a massive open-world game with terrain-altering bending mechanics is doable. Just take a look at Fortnite to get an idea of how earthbending could work. In the same way that construction in that game is fluid with multiple options of what to build during fast-paced action and combat, earthbending could construct walls, towers, mounds, spikes, or stairways in the middle of any fight. The other three elements are simple enough to imagine in a gameplay setting. There are plenty of games that offer mechanics similar to how firebending works. For airbending, depending on the character, if they carry a glider staff, then they can take flight at any time, not dissimilar to how in Spider-Man PS4, you can jump and just start swinging around at a moment's notice. Waterbending could be limited environmentally. You can only perform stronger moves when around large sources of liquid. To switch between elements would be as simple as tapping a direction on the D-pad, which lets you change strategy quickly during combat. And of course, certain elements would be stronger or weaker depending on the time of day when you use them. When outside of combat, there could be an option for free bending. Instead of performing specific moves or techniques, you could take a chunk of rock or a blob of water and move it around freely. This could help you complete puzzles, open up new pathways, or just goof around in the overworld. As the game progresses, depending on the story, you would learn new bending styles and abilities as you go along. Maybe your character starts out only knowing fire and air, so once you learn earthbending, you can return to an old location and try moving that big rock that seemed to be hiding something mysterious. Maybe you meet a specialist who teaches you how to hone your abilities and increases the heat of your firebending, granting you higher strength attacks, or makes your airbending more nimble, increasing your movement speed. Like in Zelda Breath of the Wild, you can gain more health and stamina over time. In this game, your bending abilities would grow as your character trains and becomes wiser. And bending doesn't have to be everything, just the primary gameplay elements. Imagine how creative you could get using certain levels in the spirit world. They could be confusing and shifting landscapes, like the fear-induced dream sequences from Batman Arkham Asylum. You could battle spirits in a mind-bending psychedelic world, or perhaps race them, go on quests for them. Anything is possible. You could also have various different animal companions, large rideable ones like badger moles, dragons, or flying bison, or small ones to help complete puzzles like Momo or Pabu. If this game were made correctly and they really put a lot of time and effort into the production, it would be a massive hit. The truth of the matter is, it fulfills two of the current desires of the general public. People want more Avatar. This series has an incredible nostalgic pull to it, with millions of fans all across the world. And people want an Avatar game. One of the biggest and most impressive projects in the new PS4 world-building release, Dreams, is the construction of a game based on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Designed by Elka Gaming over the last several months, this fan experience is a love letter to the original series and has garnered so much praise that even IGN has covered the story. I highly recommend that you check it out. Elka has done a phenomenal job, and if you have Dreams, you can actually play his current version of the game right now. The fact is, this would be a big seller. This would make Bryke and Viacom money, and Bryke don't even have to write it. It could be like the Marvel movies. Bryke could serve as a Kevin Feige type overseer of the process, and they could hire writers who have the chops for quality fantasy and comedy. just like Marvel hires writers and directors for their films. And because people want an Avatar game and would buy it, along with any of the DLC that comes with it, Viacom wouldn't have to rely on merchandising to make money, or mess around with time slots on their channels, because we all know a new animated series would just be booted out for the 18th episode of SpongeBob that day. Avatar needs to continue, and it needs to be as a series of AAA video games. Will it happen? Probably not, but I sure hope it does. At the very least, maybe someone will see this video and run with the idea. Or maybe I'll tackle something like this in the future, just not as a video game. Who knows? Until then, let me know what you would like to see in a future Avatar story down below. I've been Beware. Stay frosty.